Right. Well, welcome everybody to the session today about how to become a successful self-employed Salesforce consultant. It's a topic that I'm particularly passionate about because it helped me reposition and launch my Salesforce career. And I started out as a self-employed Salesforce consultant from the outset, really, in my career. Never worked for anybody else, but I had various contracts with organizations. And there are different ways to do it. So today I brought together a panelist of special women who've done amazing things in developing their own Salesforce careers, and also Libby from our Supermums team, who helps people become successful self-employed Salesforce consultants as well, whether you're starting out or experienced, to help them secure job opportunities as a contractor. So we've got different perspectives, different approaches that you're going to learn about today. And I think the key thing is, at Supermums, we're very passionate about helping women and others, so anybody is welcome to this webinar, whether you're a mum or not, to help you learn how you can launch and accelerate your career. We do work with people all over the world to do this. We share free educational blogs every single week through our Boost Your Salesforce Career Bulletin. And we regularly do events and training opportunities to help, to upskill people. And we work with many companies globally to help them source emerging and experienced talent as well, to help them accelerate their Salesforce projects. So as you can see, we are truly global. You can see where all our trainees have come from all over the world. And we have a very diverse, mix of people going into a range of job roles and opportunities, but also working as self-employed consultants as well, equally in this space. So networking is one of the key things that I'm going to talk about today. Within the Supermums community, you've got a great opportunity to network. And I've been really inspired about how people within our community work collaboratively together, whether you need a blended skill set or whether you want to work together on projects or how to find work opportunities. One of the key things you'll do is network. So that's what we're going to talk about. Now, is this session for you? Well, whether you're starting out in your Salesforce career or whether you're already established and looking for your next step, it is definitely for you. So quite a few of our Supermums who've launched their career with us by participating in our admin course have started out as a self-employed contractor. And Libby will talk a little bit more about how that happens. But that has really helped them get valuable work experience on their CV with a couple of clients. And then that's helped them land a permanent role if that's what they've decided to do. Sometimes they stay consulting because they enjoy it and they like it, and that's absolutely fine also. But it's a great way to get, a couple of more projects on your CV to kind of start building that portfolio to land a job if that's where you want to go. The other reason people do the self-employment route and a contractor route is to earn a higher day rate. Now, this comes with pros and cons, right? You get a higher day rate, but you don't get paid for holidays or sick pay typically. But it also means that you might have times when you don't have work because you might have a lull in work opportunities coming through. So obviously the higher day rate is there to allow for that caveat of maybe times that you won't have work. But you might equally be stacked with work. It depends on how you find projects and what type of projects you decide to do. So typically your day rates will be higher.
Yeah.
It's about, oh, sorry, can I just check that everybody's on mute? It's about, making sure you've got a consistent workflow coming through. The third reason people become self-employed as a Salesforce consultant is because they want more flexibility in your days and times and the periods you work. So for example, some people that we've put into contracts want to work for 3 months, then take the summer off to be with their kids, and then they'll pick up the next contract after that. So that allows for that opportunity. It also means with some particular scenarios, you might choose your hours you work because you can work with more flexibility. You check in with a client once a week, for example, but then you go away and you do your work in your own time. Again, different types of contracts with different clients will allow for different levels of flexibility. It depends on exactly the type of contract you want. And then finally, it gives you more variety in the products and companies that you contract with, because it can give you that diversity to work for different customers. A different contract each time will probably be with a different customer or working on a different product. So it allows for you to build up your portfolio of experience, your experience around different products and different insights into how different Salesforce projects work a lot more quickly. And if that appeals to you because you love that variety, you love that change, you like the different scenarios and opportunities, then that absolutely will work for you. If you're looking for more stability and you want to know a system really well and you want to know the team really well, then you're probably better off working for an end customer and having more of a permanent role. So again, it suits a certain type of personality and character who have a thirst for change and variety and always learning, really, in that sense. So they're the key reasons why this type of role might suit you and give you that flexibility. So what we're going to discuss today, and I'll get my panel to introduce themselves in a moment, we are going to look at how you can set yourself up for can't get my words out today, how are you going to set yourself up for success as a self-employed consultant from 4 different perspectives. And obviously, if you've got any questions that you want us to answer for you, then you can pop those in the chat as well. So we're going to look at how do you find and secure work as a self-employed Salesforce consultant. We're then going to look at how do you manage your time between life, prospecting new work, and delivering that work. Thirdly, we're going to talk about how do you manage your clients day to day. And the fourth is how do you extend your team to meet more technical requirements? Because quite often we don't have all the skills we need if we're working on a project. So how do you protect yourself against that and support yourself if you need additional skill sets? So we're going to look at some of these areas as we go through. So we've got an amazing panel of speakers. So I'll talk a little about my journey as we go through as well and share my insights. So I started out as a self-employed consultant back in 2010, started an official business around it independently in 2011, and then grew a Salesforce consultancy around me because I had more work than I could manage and decided that was the route that I was going to take at that point. So I'll share my journey as we go through these questions. I've got Libby here. Libby, do you want to say hi to everybody? I'll put everybody on spotlight as well as we go through.
Yeah, of course. So hey everyone. So my name is Libby. I have worked in the recruitment sector, 8 years now. I come from a background of working in the education sector, moved over to Supermums going on about 2.5 years now. My role here is our delivery team manager, and I primarily oversee our contract desk as well. So it'd be a really good opportunity for you guys to ask any questions you might have about contracting today as well.
Thanks, Libby. Iris, do you want to go next?
Well, hello everyone. My name's Iris. I've worked in the Salesforce ecosystem for over 8 years now. I've done many roles within this period, but most notably, I was the head of marketing automation at one of the largest IT consultancies in the world. Where I am is very loud. I'm so sorry if it's too loud. I work remotely, as you can see, and more recently, I realized after all these years, I've had enough exposure and made enough of an impact within the Salesforce ecosystem to try and go out on my own. And now I own a small consultancy focused on B2B digital marketing solutions.
Fantastic. Thank you, Iris. Lovely to have you here as well. Caitlin, do you want to go next?
Sure, happy to. Thanks, Heather. My name is Caitlin Holland, and I'm the founder of Spark Personalization, which is also a mostly B2B digital marketing agency, really one-person agency. It's me. But I focus on several different things. I founded it primarily to be focused around personalized automated marketing campaigns, and that's still a lot of what I do is campaign work for my clients. But I also do some branding, some marketing strategy work, and content marketing work. So it's kind of tied together my experience as well as my more recent upskilling in Salesforce Marketing Cloud so that I could incorporate that with the experience I already had with things like HubSpot and Marketo.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kate. It's lovely to have you here because we connected when you came on our Marketing Cloud course. So it's great to see what you're doing now. And I'm looking forward to you sharing some of your tips as we go through. So thank you.
Sure.
Jo, welcome. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. I've been around probably the longest in the Salesforce ecosystem. I started off as a Salesforce consultant for Salesforce back in 2007. And I moved from England to Scotland for love in 2009, and the travel was crazy. I was traveling every day and it became crazy. So I left Salesforce in September 2009 and set up JetCloud, which is still going, 15 years this year. So it's a big celebration. I mainly work with small not-for-profits and very small businesses up to maybe 50 users. And I deal with the core Sales Cloud. I do Service Cloud as well. I don't really do Marketing Cloud, so it'd be good to connect with you Marketing Cloud gurus. I work with standard campaigns, but I don't go beyond that, so it would be helpful. Yes, but I moved because of the flexibility, and I've now got kids, and it all works around the children.
Thanks for joining us, Jo. That's awesome. And congratulations on your 15 years. Definitely something to celebrate during National Women's Enterprise Week, which it is this week as well. So we absolutely can do it. And, you know, it can sustain itself beyond 15 years and more until you retire, right, Jo? Is that the idea? We can keep
hopefully.
Yeah, we have to keep pace with the technology all the time, though. That's the thing, isn't it? There's always lots to learn in this industry. So we've got people from very different backgrounds and experiences, from those that are more established in the sector to people that are starting out, and that's what we aim to give you today. So the first question we're going to tackle is about how do you find and secure work? And I'll just share, I suppose, the approach that I took when I started. So starting out as a Salesforce newbie, I very much created a niche around my work with non-profits, and that's where I wanted to work, and sort of built my reputation around that. So I networked in a lot of the Salesforce user groups online and in person with non-profits, and basically started to respond to questions in those groups. And then I just reached out to people that were asking for help and asked them if they wanted some support. And that's how I got my first clients, was actually just through networking in those initial groups. And I say just reaching out and being bold and, you know, going beyond that to introduce myself. And that's networking was a key thing. And then building up my presence and awareness on LinkedIn and sort of making people aware of, this is what I'm doing, this is my specialism. Writing some blogs and topics and doing events. As you can see, I've always done events to raise awareness of what I do. So running events around your target audience, making them aware of Salesforce or some product features, starts to build your mailing list and start to build trust and rapport with people in that area. So that's the way that I did it. And that allowed me to then grow a consultancy to work with 300 nonprofits on 700 projects over I think the 8 years I was running the consultancy, but we had a 60% repeat and referral rate as well. So if you build a brand and an awareness around it, that's the way that I did it personally. Now, I could have gone, I just found clients myself, but you don't have to do that. So that's where, Libby, you come in terms of you can work with a recruitment agency to help you secure contracts. So Libby, do you want to share a little bit about how it works on the recruitment desk and how you...
Obviously, my perspective is going to be quite different to how everyone else is going to share it. But I'd say it's definitely a simpler way for everyone who's trying to get into it. I think it will definitely help from a confidence perspective if you're new to the market to approach through an agency. So whether it's Supermums or whether it's another agency, right? You know, we are going to have clients that are going to be looking for contractors who are going to be looking for that short-term support, for that flexible support. So essentially we're doing a lot of the work for you. We'll be advertising for that short-term talent, for that flexible talent. And then really it's just a choice of choosing how you would like to contract. So there are a couple of routes, which I'm sure we'll discuss today, of how you would like to essentially work, whether it's through an umbrella company or whether it's a self-employed route. But it's really just a choice of picking how you'd like to work for that company and whether you're the right fit, following a little bit of an interview process with our clients. But it's definitely not as vigorous and not as complicated at all as if you were going for a permanent role. But we do a lot of the groundwork. Of course, we've got clients that are return customers. So our return rate of customers is very high. We're very confident in the customers that we've got. They're very happy with the service that they get with us. So we do get a lot of return clients. And then on top of that, of course, we get new customers coming to us all the time. Non-profit is a very popular sector for us as well, with getting short-term contracts. But then when I say short-term, on the other side of that, we do get long-term contracts. You know, we have some clients that have had a contract for over 2 years, 2.5 years, probably even longer than I've been here, which is 2.5 years. So just to put that into another perspective as well, if you are considering going down the route of using an agency to get a contract, it doesn't always have to be short-term projects. But at the same time, like Heather was introducing earlier, you know, if you wanted to have the opportunity of experiencing lots of different clients, and, you know, it's a good way to upskill yourself with lots of different skills that can come through different clients, then it's definitely a good way in through agencies as well. So yeah, without going too in depth with it, that's a good way, of course, how Supermums can help you, because we have already got the clients for you. It's doing the groundwork for you. But you do have to be fast with us, because when we get a contract job, of course, we get a lot of interest because of the community.
Thank you, Libby. No, it's great. It's another way in, isn't it? So Caitlin, what about you? How do you find insecure work?
I also saw Nisha's question in the comments about going self-employed seems daunting. How do you sell yourself when you're just starting out? So I kind of am still just starting out. Like I'll hit 2 years of consulting for myself this October. And I would say I can't stress enough the power of your personal network. I have not advertised myself at all yet. I don't have a website. I'm just now starting to feel like, all right, it's time to get my own website up or something. Help legitimize the business and also to find new clients. But to this point, I have been so busy with work just from my personal network. I made it very clear when I left my last position that I was, what my skill sets were, and that I was intending on going out on my own and consulting. And there's a huge marketing need out there, right? And Salesforce need, right? In my case, it's more the marketing niche of marketing automation work. But especially if you kind of know who you want to target, which Heather was mentioning, right? So my experience had been in nonprofits, associations, and small businesses. And so I could speak to those, I could tie my skill sets into the unique needs of that audience. Again, I didn't do any campaigning for myself, but this is just me talking to people and spreading the word. So everyone has a personal network. You might not realize how large yours already is. And I would say the first 2 to 3 years you're starting out, that's 90% of your business is going to come from or more. And so just making sure that you aren't too shy and are bold about, this is what I'm doing now. I'm looking for work. This is the type of things I can do for, these types of organizations. And I think you'll be, you'd be surprised at how effective that is. Eventually that might run out, but definitely in the first couple of years, it's the easiest way to get your first contracts.
Fantastic. Thank you, Caitlin. I love your branding, by the way.
Thank you.
Can I just add on, if you don't mind me saying, because you're saying about the importance of your personal network. I think people forget how important LinkedIn is when you're riding solo as well. It's not just about your brand itself in terms of a professional brand, but your personal brand is so important. We say this to candidates all the time. There is no platform like LinkedIn. It is the only one that exists. And when we have an employer looking at someone's profile, the first thing they do is go to LinkedIn. They will have a look at people's employment history. So to tag on to what you were saying, just if you haven't thought about your LinkedIn, and we say this to everybody, if you take anything from today, between what Caitlin's just said, if I could add on to it, please look at your personal brand online. It's so important. Make sure it is squeaky clean. It really does matter.
And one of the things that we recommend to our Supermums community is get other people in the community to endorse you for those skill sets, right? And to sort of build that up, because you've already got a group of people that have your back and kind of can reinforce and know that you do know Salesforce. So you can absolutely draw on all your personal network to endorse you, to give you recommendations, to kind of build up all that presence. So absolutely. Thanks, Libby. So Iris, what about yourself? What would you say?
I think, like many of the women on the panel today, I also have a niche. And although I managed a global team that had lots of different skills, my area of expertise was always Pardot or marketing cloud account engagement for the newbies. And I, during my career working for other people, I was on the advisory board for partners at Salesforce, also marketing champion and all these things. And I think I realized that having that niche and having so much to offer, I wanted to try and see if freelancing was the right thing for me to do at the time. I was on maternity leave with my second child. So what I did actually to get my first freelance job is I reached out to a friend in my network and I said, hey, I'm on maternity leave. I want to keep my brain fresh. I just want to do a little bit of work here and there around, the baby. I had absolutely no intention of starting a company or being where I am today. And he actually said, no, I don't have anything in that area because that's not what I focus on. That's not what I do. He then called me back 2 days later and said, an opportunity has just come his way. And had he not have spoken to me, he would have said no to that opportunity. So are you interested in helping me manage this startup project? And I think the point that I'm trying to make here is that if you don't put yourself out there and you don't actually share your intentions with your network and you don't tell people that you have a skill or something that you do have to offer, then those opportunities just won't come your way. And sometimes I think also, I'm sure a lot of the ladies on the panel will agree, opportunities either literally come and slap you in the face, and sometimes they're so subtle that you need to be really clever in how you actually spot opportunities. And so for me, that's how I started. I just reached out. It went from there, and then it snowballed. And I actually didn't go back to my job, and I started my own company, and that's kind of how my personal freelance journey started. But I don't think it's too dissimilar to a lot of people that are also freelancing and contracting.
And what's amazing, Iris, isn't it? You now have a team, right? You have a team. Was it 8 that you mentioned? So you've got
14.
14 or even more. So you've done amazingly well in such a short space of time in terms of generating work. That's definitely something to celebrate. Thank you. I love the slap round the face. It is. Sometimes you're like, why didn't I pick up on that? But what I realize is every conversation I have every single day opens up a door. So just try and talk to people, have conversations. We can't sit behind a computer, sit behind emails. We have to arrange coffee calls and meetings with as many people as possible to open doors. So I love that. You've done exceptionally well. You've done brilliant. I love it. Accidental. Jo, what about yourself?
Well, when I worked at Salesforce, I worked in the small business area, the corporate services department. So I was a specialist in quick starts. So I actually worked on over 100 startup projects with Salesforce. So I met a lot of people that way. And when I left, the week after was Dreamforce. And as a services consultant, you don't get to go to Dreamforce when you work for Salesforce because you don't generate revenue. So the first thing I did was skip myself off on a plane over to Dreamforce the following week and met and introduced and handed out business cards to everyone. And then I came back, and the week after it was the world tour in London at the Excel Centre or Barbican, can't remember which one. Anyway, I met somebody there who was a marketing expert within a larger kind of telecoms company and bagged my first contract, which was a big project rather than a quick start. And one of the reasons I wanted to go self-employed was because I was so frustrated with quick starts, because you can't set up a customer in 3 days and expect them to know what the heck they want, what the heck they've got to do with it, and actually expect them to adopt the system and use it. So I wanted to do a slow start so people could actually go in quite quickly, but not be left on their own and have a bit of follow-up. So my first project was actually about 4 months, and I was on site maybe 3 days a week, and I had to fly because I was still in Inverness at this point. I'm now back in Bristol, but I was in Inverness, and I was flying down to somewhere in the Midlands every week for all these months, and they were paying for it because I was so used to have being charged out and how Salesforce did pricing. I went in quite high and asked them to do travel, so I got to live that life. But my first few projects were quite big ones, and it became then after that word of mouth, and then I worked out that actually I didn't want the big ones when I had the babies. And so I've probably got 7 customers at the moment that I do. Some days I have a whole day with one, some days it's just an hour, some weeks I hardly have anything. And it's very much more mishmash because, as you said before, people like the variety. I like the variety. I've got companies that sell engineering projects, and I've got people that manage people because it's a befriending network, like looking after people in the non-profit sector. So very, very, very customers, and I love that about it.
Yeah. And are they purely implementation, Jo, or are they like support where you're providing a support desk almost to them?
I mean, they are both. I'm supporting them, but then I'm implementing things that I recommend because they need them. So it's a bit of both. Some of them have been a very big project where I kind of rejigged their entire system because the people who set it up left and no one knew how it worked. So I've gone back to basics, and then I'm there kind of training the teams. And if they've got a question or they need a report or dashboard doing or fixed, I am a support in that way as well. But I don't have like a 30-minute return. I haven't got to respond to a call if they come in. I just respond as soon as I can, and it works well. I'm very lucky.
That's good. And it is word of mouth, isn't it? I was one of my very first clients came back to me after since 2012, came back to me to ask for my support with the new organisation. I was like, oh, it's like they remembered me.
Yeah, that happened. I mean, I worked with another company before I went into Salesforce, and a guy that I worked with there had seen that I did Salesforce now, and I've actually gone to work with one of his customers. 15 years on.
Yeah, you do a good job.
LinkedIn.
And they come
LinkedIn.
back. LinkedIn, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I love LinkedIn.
And you've got to update what is really adding that to your portfolio. Like everybody if you add a new job title and company, like Iris did the other day with your new company, everybody sees it. And that's one of the biggest ways of getting traction and everybody knowing. So adding that new job title, your business name in your work experience sort of is a big flurry of, you know, people being aware, but then you've got to say with it, this is what I'm doing and this is what I'm about. But I also wanted to pick up on your point, Joe, and this leads me probably quite nicely into the next question, is a quick start. You know, 3 days isn't enough. And actually what I realized is at a minimum like starting somebody off on Salesforce, even the smallest non-profit, is a minimum 12-day project. And it could
them dedicating time to it, and they don't have 12 days to dedicate to it.
No, well, exactly. And 12 days typically won't happen in a month unless they're really focusing on it. It will happen over like 3 months, right? So then you're like juggling these 5 projects at once, which is the reality if you're on a lot of small clients. So I think how you structure things is really important. So my next question is about how do you manage your time between projects, work, life, and business development? What have you seen as the trends between that? I think for me, I did have the ebb and flow because I had a lot of these smaller customers that, you know, weren't always 12 days and a little bit more. But I found that some months I might only work 2 weeks of the month, but then other months I might work like max out my hours. But I was obviously juggling that around 3 days a week, you know, and trying to balance it. So smaller contracts and smaller projects were less secure for me as opposed to these longer term contracts and more days that Libby was talking about, where you know you've got a revenue and work to do. I think you've got to know that you're financially in an okay position, you know, to decide if you want the longer term contracts versus lots of smaller ones where you've got to keep finding them all the time. So Caitlin, what's been your experience here in terms of balancing everything?
So I work part-time also. That's one of the things that's great for me about consulting is I was a part-time marketing director in my last in-house role. It was full-time. It switched to part-time after I had my second child. And then I wanted to keep that schedule. So I work 4 days a week. I have to balance all the work I'm doing, whether it's for Spark Personalization or for my clients in that time. I would say I'm definitely heavier on the client, you know, again, I haven't been doing this super long, heavier on my client work. I don't spend as much time on prospecting, but I would say my number one tip for what I've observed works for me so far is consider them one and the same in a way, because I think that your next role, whether it's future work with the same client you're doing now, good work for now, or they're going to recommend you to other people, is going to come from your current client base, right? So when you're doing your client work, you're also prospecting if you're doing it well. And also being not afraid when you wrap a project or wrap a retainer or whatever the engagement looks like, to make sure you get a testimonial from them on your LinkedIn profile or on your website or anything. And you can also, you know, depending how good your relationship was, straight up ask them, like, do you know anyone else who needs similar work like this? Please reference me for this type of work in the future. And that's how I've kept working, right? Is I've had one client, they've introduced me to the next client. And so I think you can kind of consider them one and the same. If you're doing good work, good client delivery work, that's where you can get your next work as well.
Fabulous. I can tell you're a marketer, Caitlin. You've got all the tick in the boxes for the marketing strategy there. That's good. Libby, over to you. In terms of if you go through the recruitment route and become a self-employed contractor in that way, what's the level of flexibility like in those different types of roles?
I mean, it really does depend on the kind of client, and it also depends on how you go into the role. So if you're going in self-employed, you're going to have a lot more flexibility in comparison to going in through an umbrella company, for example, because the conditions of the role are going to change. So if someone's going through an umbrella company, you already know that there is going to be tighter restrictions in terms of the working environment. So that's something that's predetermined, and we'll always set out to somebody who's going to apply for a role with us, for example. So yeah, it really does make a difference what kind of role you're going for, depending on what's called the IR35 determination status. If anyone ever sees that on a job and you're ever really confused of what that means, please don't be. I know it sounds really scary to go, what on earth is that? But inside and outside of IR35 really just depend on whether you just want to work self-employed or whether you want to work through an umbrella company. And if you're ever unsure, I can always guide you through that process. But there is quite a lot of flexibility with the clients that we work with, to be quite honest. They really are understanding of our community. And I think you were referring to earlier about how a lot of clients, you can kind of get your work done, reach out to them once a week and then actually get the hours done within your time. I know a lot of our contractors do that, but then with the long-term clients where they've been doing things there for 2 years, 3 years, that isn't the case. They do have fixed hours. Now, them contractors are actually working through umbrella companies and they do have less flexibility. So hopefully you're understanding the trend, those of you who are listening here, that when you're working inside IR35, you work through an umbrella company. That means that essentially you're treated as an employee more than anything. You aren't an employee of that business, but you're treated more as an employee. There are more restrictions. There is less flexibility in comparison to working through your own business or being self-employed. It's a better way to word it. There is a lot more flexibility being offered, and you also have a bit more, I guess, on your side to go, this is what I want to do. There is always that sense of working through us where you can have that conversation with the client to go, this is what I want to do. And to be honest, it always does end up going that way in my experience, because it's a mutual agreement, between a worker and a client. So it does have to you have to make sure that it's right for everybody. But I would say there is a fair amount of flexibility, and that's what the contract world is about. And of course, that's what Supermums is about. So I would say most of our clients are pretty flexible, and I'd say that's quite common within our community anyway. Unless I've got any contractors on here that are about to tell me otherwise, then in which case I'd love to know. But no, I'd say it's pretty flexible in general. And a lot of our contracts are part-time as well. And the same with annual leave, for example. There is also a lot of flexibility around that. So I think there's always a nervous point of whether people can take time off in the summer. Quite common for people, of course, to want 2 weeks off, 3 weeks off. Organisations are absolutely fine with that, and you do have the flexibility to actually say, I am going to be off. You don't have to request the time off in the same way. You can say, these are my allocated times off, my days off, and the organisations will have the flexibility around that. Of course, with prior notice, don't do it on the day off, everything within reason, but there's definitely flexibility around it in the same way. So as long as if you're going through your business, you just got to bear in mind, like we were saying earlier, it's of course coming out of your expense if you're not working. You won't be able to earn for them days. Whereas if you go through an umbrella company, then there is a contribution towards your holiday pay. So again, it sounds more complicated to talk about without going in depth, but they're two different topics completely. But there is a lot of flexibility in a nutshell with the clients that we work with. And I'm going to leave it at that, because if not, I feel like it could go on forever.
Thank you, Libby. No, really good to share these different perspectives. Thank you. Iris, over to you. How do you juggle everything?
I don't. I think I struggled with this for a long time, actually. Trying to balance each of these areas, especially because life for me is, I don't know, different. Like, I've got 2 young kids, a social life, my marriage, trying to balance each of those areas. And then obviously the business, the client, and then the consultants and contractors that also work with me. I think the only tip I can really give here is that it's okay for you to not have it all in one, so for example, a lot of people are here because they're thinking about maybe freelancing as a side hustle, in addition to their full-time job, to see if they like it first, or and for you to do that, and you've got a full-time job already, and then to take on freelance work, that's another commitment that's outside of, so it's okay to decide what you want to focus on in a specific period in your life. So for me right now, the reason why I did this is because my kids are the most important thing to me whilst they're still young. So for me to say that I want to also have all these extra things for myself is just not realistic. So this period of my life, it's laser focused on my business, on my kids. Anything outside of that, it's just not, it's not going to happen. So always think about what's your North Star, like what are you aiming for, and then reevaluate constantly. And I think if you do that, then you're not going to burn out. You're not going to crash because you're not trying to do too much in one small period of time. I don't know if anyone else resonates with that, because I feel like, there's a lot of maybe lack of poor advice out there to say, you can be a mom, you can be a businesswoman, you can do all of these things, and you can go get your hair and your nails done weekly. No, you can't. You've got to choose what you want to focus on, And then once you've achieved that goal, then move on to the next thing and the next thing. And I think that's the only way I've been able to manage and juggle so much in such a short time frame.
And I think it's interesting because I suppose you're a similar situation to where I was, Iris, that you generated more work than you could deal with, and at that point it's like, well, I grow a team, right, which changes your role. So when I grew a team, I could do less of the delivery, and I'm managing a team, so it does change, you know, what is it that you need and want, and where do you manage, you know, do you want to become a manager of more people, or do you want to just stick and manage your workload? And they, you know, requires different things. You've got to think about where you want to be with that, haven't you? And the aspects of what you're juggling, how you're spending your time. But also, probably both of us grew a team because then not everybody's reliant on us. So it also gives us more flexibility to some degree if you've got a team who can also field questions and support your clients. So there's pros and cons of different ones. If it's just you're the only one that they can rely on. And I have been in some interesting places, let's say, when clients have rang me with my baby trying to sort out their Salesforce system. they needed something, and that was like, yeah, this isn't quite as flexible as I thought, which is why then I grew a team. So it's interesting. Right, Jo, what about yourself? How do you balance everything?
It's taken a while for me to work it out as well. My kids are now 9 and 10, so they're getting a bit older. But I've been very strict that I want to be there for pick up and drop off every day. So I finish work generally about 3:10, about now, to go and pick my kids up. And that works well. Customers are very flexible, and I'm working with smaller charities. They're often part-time as well. So we generally find a mutually agreeable time to have calls, and they don't care when I do the work as long as it gets done. So as long as I can be on a call and have a chat with them when they need things doing, I know what I've got to do. I can update them via email, and I can work in evenings, even weekends if I need to, but that doesn't happen often. So, and I also work on like you said before, do I do implementation projects or support? I actually do like project work where I bill kind of an estimate and then bill what is used for that estimate. I also do retainers, so they can buy a block of hours and use them over a year. So I'm getting the revenue in, and then I'm doing the hours ad hoc, and I don't have to do all the paperwork around it. Obviously, I log the time, but I don't have to keep invoicing them because they've paid the invoice. And so that gives me a bit more flexibility on the revenue stream coming through. Right. And I take summer holidays off, pretty much all of them. I take holidays off. And again, customers understand. I'm there on the email if they need me, but I try not to do anything big before they go away. So
fantastic. No, that's really good. Well done. That's, you know, and it's been strict about your time, isn't it, and managing that. So if you need to go, Jo, to pick up your kids,
I've got someone picking them up, but I'm meeting them halfway.
Brilliant. So yeah, thank you for sharing. I know we've got 5 minutes left, but we might go over a little bit as long as we're okay. So the third question is, how do we manage clients? And I think you know, if I kick off again, just documentation was king for me. I think I realized, and that's why I ended up upskilling myself in business analysis skills, agile project management, because I found that clients wanted a lot more than their budget would allow. And I was like, how do I manage this? And then getting them to sign off requirements and being really clear about what those requirements were, and you know, that we were all on the same page with it, became actually, you know, in my early days, I sort of made all those mistakes, if you like, and ended up working extra hours and time beyond what was budgeted because I didn't have that vigor around those things. I didn't know how to do it, which is why you know, I upskilled in those consultancy skills and put those into place. So documentation was king for me in terms of project management, documental requirements, getting sign off, having shared folders and project management systems with clients as well to keep them on track was paramount as part of it. So Jo, do you want to go first and just share a little bit about how you manage clients, just in case?
Yeah, I mean, for me logging my time and invoicing, I actually have Salesforce for that side of things. For requirements, it very much depends on the customer. If it's a bigger project, I often use Google Sheets so it can be shared and updated both sides. If we're having calls, often we record the calls as well, so I can like make notes afterwards. And if I'm like doing a small process, implementing a small process for them for one of the teams, I'll obviously often do like a training guide, which is kind of half admin, half end user, so it's somewhere in between. So it links to what's been set up in their setup area. And also I will do a recording of a QuickTime video. So it's like they can see it in action, and they find the videos are probably the most useful thing because again, the customers I work with are often very small charities and don't want big documents to read. They just want to know, I need to know this bit. I want to go on just like that. Okay, I understand it. We'll move on to the next thing. Then yeah, I don't really do giant projects that I know everything requires requirements, but I don't even have the time available to do the type of requirements that you obviously do very well. And I learned on the project training that I did the consulting training. But yeah, the projects are very small and they just don't have the budget.
Yeah, it's managing it, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
I always found that with the small projects, it was almost I had to control them more stringently, otherwise I'd end up going over. So I think it depends on the clients you work with.
It very much does.
Yeah, how you want
And
to
what the requirements are, because if it's a big project, obviously there's a lot to include. But if it's just one little process.
Yeah, exactly. You don't.
That's how I normally work.
Documentation. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Joe. Iris, what about yourself?
Everything that Joe said, I resonate with. Like that is the right way to kind of manage a project. But for me to kind of juggle all those different roles that I'm playing, all different clients, you know, sometimes I'm subcontracting, and I use technology to my advantage. So I use things like Motion AI, where I have days dedicated to meetings only, and I'll only do meetings in those days, because there's nothing worse than interrupting a train of thought and context switching. You can't actually do any valuable work between meetings. So I structure my calendar in a way where I've got days just for meeting and days just for creating and delivering. Things like Motion AI are really clever, because if someone was to cancel on you last minute, looking at your backlog, it will suggest the most suitable thing to do in that time frame. Instead of you having to spend 15 minutes trying to figure out what should I do now that this meeting's not happening. So that's one tip. A second is I use things like Asana, where I can kind of manage my workload, because I'm taking requirements from multiple different sources, centralizing it, and then handing that back out to a team of contractors and employees, and having a central source to be able to then make sure that nothing is dropping. And then the other tip as well is that I actually schedule regular calls with clients, set time every week, and then I'm knowing that call is coming up. I know that if there's any work that has to be done for them, I can spend 15 minutes for the call, see where all that work is at, take more requirements from them, you know, just keep chatting to them along the way and just seeing how their requirements develop over time as well, because the more they use the system, the more that need changes as well. So technology is your friend, 100%. Being really organized and having a central calendar is literally the best way to kind of juggle multiple things, especially if you're doing full-time work and then contracting on the side as well.
Brilliant. Love those tips. They're awesome. Thank you, Iris. Caitlin.
Yeah, I love those tips too. Love the meeting only days. I need to start implementing that. And also the specific tool tip of Motion AI, I'll look into that. I also use a lot of technology tools to keep everything organized. So I work with between like 4 to 10 clients at a time. And I think I said before it was just me. That's not entirely true. I don't manage anybody. I don't have a staff, but I work with a team of vendors that have expertise in areas I don't, or to augment my own expertise. Of course, I have to do that. I wouldn't be able to part-time work with 10 clients without some of that. And so to keep everyone on the same page, you know, my clients, my vendors, when there's vendors involved, myself, I use a bunch of tools too. I mean, I think two that come top of mind are Wavebox.io, which if you are part of multiple clients, Microsoft tenants and things like that, Wavebox allows you to have that all organized in one browser where you never have to sign out of any of them. So you can kind of just toggle between them. You have a meeting with one client here, the next hour you have a meeting with another client. It just keeps you logged into everything. You can put your Slack instances there with different clients. I do recommend using things like Teams and Slack over constant email. So Wavebox keeps all that really organized. I also use Read AI. Of course, we're all using AI tools at this point, which for meetings is amazing because it puts together a full transcript, it records it, but then it also does like key action items at the end for you. So it's the kind of stuff we used to have to do for ourselves and put into something like Asana. But I mean, I'm sure Read AI can actually integrate with Asana and things like that. But the tasks afterwards are just really right there for you, right? So I always reference like past meetings. I'm like, okay, this is what we talked about. This is what I have. This is what they had to get me, all of that. And I send those summaries to clients. So it keeps them organized as well, and keeps things moving. So 100% agree that it's a lot of trial and error. You have to figure out which of these tools. There's so many tools out there right now that help with this kind of thing, with client work, project management, all of that. And it's a little trial and error of like, what are my favorite ones? These are the ones I'm going to stick with. You don't want to pay for a ton of tools at a time if you're a small operation. Like I want to be having as little subscriptions as possible to keep my business going. So as soon as I decided I want to try another one, I kind of cancel one. And you know, it's a process of trial and error, but it's worth it because they're so helpful once you start using them.
Amazing, thank you. I love the fact that AI is becoming the new best friend, right, in terms of efficiency. we all need to embrace it. Absolutely. I'm still there. I'm edging nearer to doing that, but it's great. Thank you for sharing all those tools. And I think you have to be working really efficiently, you know, and professionally. I think that's where you get a good reputation, is if everything's very clearly documented, communicated, managed. That's what people are going to see and remember and value, and obviously the outcome that you're producing. So that's all really, really valuable. And then finally, the last question is around, you know, extended team. So if you haven't got all of the support and resources, Caitlin, you did touch on this already, you know, that you've got other vendors and things like that. I mean, Libby, going to you as a final point, you've put multiple contractors into companies, right? So that's one way of doing it, is that, you know, you can sort of say, actually, we need some additional resource. And it's okay for that admin to say no. So I think sometimes admins think, if an admin's been put in there that, oh, I must do all of this, it's actually one, you know, you can say to the client, actually, this is beyond my skill set, and other developers would go in. So it's important, isn't it? In contract roles, there can be multiple contracts.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so important that you actually do stick to what your expertise are. And don't get me wrong, I understand that people want to try and push themselves and do something new. And, you know, we all do want to push our limits, right? So that's how we learn. But at the same time, you know, there are other professionals that can come in and support you and help you learn at the same time. So don't be afraid if you're working with us, working through another agency, or even working directly, to say that we need additional help. You know, even Heather and I have experienced this recently with a client ourselves. We've actually said to them, we need to get additional help in with this client. And it does happen very, very frequently that we do provide a team of people to a client, because as much as we trust our candidates and would say that they've definitely got the ability to do exactly what they're saying, but going beyond their ability, that's where things can go wrong. We want to provide the best service possible, and so do you. We want to make sure that you can do the best that you can in your job. So yeah, as much as you want to push your ability, and of course you want to learn along the way, definitely, but bring in that support as a learning and training opportunity for yourself as well. So of course, if you're working with one of our clients, just say, you know, I think this is actually where my capability is going to stop. This is the job description we set out. This is the requirements that we set out, and actually that's going outside of them requirements. So can we look for additional support for that? And we can of course provide a team for it, as Heather was saying.
Fabulous, thank you. Jo, have you brought in other experts around you for projects?
Yeah, I have decided not to grow my team, but yes, I do have some trusted people that I go to if I need any like complicated flows or code or anything like that done. But generally, I try to avoid doing any automation, because these are very small organizations I'm working with, and they say they need all these things. You build something that automates it, and they're like, it doesn't work the way we wanted it to work. And then you spend quite a lot of time and a lot of money undoing. And I was like, just make it work manually first and then think about automating. So very much around that. As I said, I probably need some marketing advice from the marketing experts at some point, the marketing cloud, beyond standard campaigns. So I'll get in touch with them after.
You're having a team of freelancers. That's what I did as well. I had
it's easier.
developers working alongside me on some projects. And Iris, you've trained up some people to work in your team though as well, right? So you lean on, what's your composition of experts?
Literally the same journey as the other women on the panel. A team of freelancers tapped into my network. I manage a team of almost 100 people globally, so my network was quite large of people who could do what I do in terms of marketing automation. And you'd be surprised how many people do actually want to do extra work outside of their 9 to 5. And especially if it's fun work, it's work that they know how to do. It's quick, easy money for them. So not many people turn down a side hustle if it comes their way. In Salesforce Consultancy, that is anyway. So that's how I started. And eventually, you know, having 3 or 4 different freelancers work on one project just became quite hard to manage. So that's when I got to that point, that's when I started looking at permanent positions and training up a junior team. And a lot of the work I do is very similar to Joe. It's accelerators, it's quick starts, it's, you know, this is it. We're not really coming outside of the box. So it was a lot easier for me to train a team on the guidelines and making sure quality assurance is a big deal, right? You know, when you're no longer the one delivering yourself day in, day out, you know, my name, my company's reputation is on the line. And that's where like having really thorough training was important. And also documentation, like Heather's said, and then quality assurance before it goes back to the client, because I would never send anything back to them that I couldn't do myself. And that takes time. But it was the point when I realized that I had too many freelancers on one project when I said, okay, I'm going to start going down a permanent route.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Thank you, Iris. Caitlin, anything more to add from your side? I know you said you work with different vendors. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, right now I just work with different vendors. You know, I don't know if ever having a staff and actually growing the agency to being a full-fledged, you know, thing, a larger company is on the agenda or not. The reason I started it was to have the flexibility and kind of the freedom to jump from thing to thing. And I, you know, I worry with an actual team, it would be more of my time that I'm able to commit right now or willing to commit right now. But that might be something I'm interested in down the line. And I think working with vendors and like the others have said, like tapping your own network, you know, you've been doing the work, you know, there are people who can do the work. Not only is it something that's really important for augmenting the client projects that you're also working on in some cases, but if you need to step out, for example, I'm actually pregnant right now with my third and going on maternity leave. And so thank God I know some people who can do the same work I can do and will do that for a few months while I'm not working at all, right? And I already have those vendors kind of in my network. I've already thrown work their way. They're happy to take on more work. So having a network of vendors is almost as important as having a network for new prospects, right? You need that network to really be successful, I think, as a consultant.
Oh, congratulations on your third one. It's brilliant that you've got that back, you know, that support group to take on that work for you. So really, really delighted.
And always looking for more. So if people are interested, get in touch with me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I'm sure there's some Marketing Cloud people, Caitlin, in our network. They've gone through the course since then. So let's connect with some of those people. That would be fabulous. For sure. Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to all our guest speakers for sharing your insights, your stories, and some great tips that we've got there. I just want to finish off with a couple of slides just to talk a little bit about the different courses that we run at Supermums. So if you are looking to upskill in any of these areas, whether you're starting out as a Salesforce professional or like Caitlin, you went through the Marketing Cloud course and want to sort of become a niche in that, you know, that's a great opportunity if you've got marketing background. If you want to be a self-employed consultant, I would really recommend that you upskill in business analysis, change management, and agile project management skills as well, because I, hand on heart, could not do the job without those skill sets. So we do run a course around that, and you can pick tools and templates that you can apply to your project straight away. And then also our CRM analytics course as well, which is, again, is a unicorn product at the moment. It's in every Salesforce system, but not everybody knows it's there and is really utilizing it. So it's one of those niche products that you could become an expert in and really upskill in. So find your niche. There's some great tips that we've had out of today. I will summarize these in a blog for you and wrap up, and we'll share the recording. Obviously, connect with our recruitment team if you want to connect with Libby. We'll send out the links for that as well. And if you are interested in any of the courses that we've got running, we have a discount of 20% off those training courses as a part of our summer discount if you sign up and register before the 21st of June. So we'll send all that in an email to you. Thank you for staying with us. I know we've overrun slightly, so thank you for staying on. Hope you're going to all pick up your kids okay. For those running off to school, thank you, Joe. You can go run off. And we'll see you all shortly. Thank you for joining. Thank you again, everyone, and we'll see you soon.